Dr. Herman, thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure.
To start off with, I wanted to give you a chance to talk about why New Mexico State University seemed like a good fit for you.
Well, one is it's a land-grant institution, and I've been all my administrative life at land grants, Penn State, the University of Maryland, University of Illinois, and this would be yet another land grant. And one in the sense that I really understand what it means, what that mission means, and serving the public good. So that's one particular piece. The idea of building human capital is something that this nation needs to do. Increase graduation rates, not just access to universities and community colleges, but increase graduation rates. And in particular here we have a minority serving institution which has one of the fastest growing populations in the country, and the opportunity to create leadership from among those individuals. The idea of helping to build a university, take it to the next tier. I think given all the excellence that's here and the possibilities to build on it, I find very attractive.
When you talk about taking the university to the next tier,
right.
Tell me what you see as the major challenges for NMSU.
Well, I think first of all, for all state institutions, all public higher institutions, we have to deal with the paucity of funding from the state. Almost every state in the country is beleaguered by its own obligations, well, certainly include the university, with social services and serving its population. So how do we find the resources to do what it is we need to do? And part of that would be fundraising. And this is something I've done a lot of and actually enjoy doing. And taking the case of the institution to larger and larger number of people. Certainly the state legislature and the governor are very important to the life of a state institution, but so are its donors, so are its alumni, and so are the corporations which it might work with.
When you talk about fundraising and getting donations for various programs at an educational institution, there are often concerns about donors having an undue influence on the university. How do you prevent that?
Well, I've rarely seen it. Occasionally you might get some sort of a strange request, and you might just say, well, that's nice, but we can't do that. What we do find is that in a different way, in a very positive way, I would say, donors now are not just leaving you a legacy gift and walking away from the institution. They want to help you serve on an advisory board and become involved with the institution. But rather than taking it in a negative way, it can be a very, very positive experience. And we find that our younger donors are like this. And I think it's worked very, very well.
We talked about some of the challenges you see for the university. Where do you think NMSU excels?
Well, certainly in its traditional missions of agriculture and engineering. I mean, much like Illinois was used to be the Illinois Industrial University, okay? But now we see business and finance and the international aspects. I think these are a few of the areas where I think we are quite good and competitive. How else, can you be competitive in other areas? And again, I wouldn't choose to lay out a roadmap from this distance, but I think it's important to think about where you have your base of excellence and how you can build upon that. And also continuing to find the resources to get students in and get great faculty here and retain them.
Public broadcasting plays a unique role here because in addition to the educational opportunities for students and the community, this is the only television station in southern New Mexico, and it is also the home of the only radio stations that have a significant news and public affairs presence. How do you see the role of public broadcasting at a university,
Well,
and in particular at NMSU?
Sure. Well, broadly speaking, since I don't know the particular NMSU situation, this is part of the door to the university. It's part of meeting the public good. And if you are an NPR affiliate, then you're probably partly funded by the university, partly funded by donations, and one has to figure out how to create that very balance. And you also have to not just be a voice for the university, but have that independent status as well. So I've worked with our College of Media, as it's now called, which has a radio station and a TV station. And it did take a certain amount of fundraising, actually, by one of my predecessors to get a great facility. And now, of course, we're having to convert to digital. So it's a changing business, but I think a very important one if we're going to communicate to the public.
Okay. On the academic side, one of the major issues, as you know, right now, all across the country, is the fact that there are fewer tenure track positions. Many worry about the impact of that on academic freedom. How do you view that?
You mean hiring other than tenure track people for?
Yeah, as a total percentage of faculty, there are fewer tenure track and tenured faculty, as you know,
of course,
all over the
country. Just because of budget cuts. I mean, the biggest problem is making sure the education is a good one. And in many cases, instructors can operate in a very fun way, as they do at my present institution. But that's generally under the guidance of the tenure track faculty. I don't see this so much as, at least the way you framed it, as an academic freedom issue. Depends on, there are issues about the rule of governance, who gets to vote, and largely the place gets controlled. Curricular issues get decided upon by the tenure track faculty in conjunction, say, with the faculty senate or faculty student senate, depending on the place.
Do you have a percentage in mind that you'd like to see as a goal for tenure track and tenure?
You know, I haven't really thought about a percentage so much as making sure we have excellent people in the classroom, and that's more related to how they perform and their degree basis. But I would hate to see the tenure track faculty diminish in size. And so far, I know we've managed to avoid that. But if things get like they are in California, I don't know what's going to happen.
The university and the community take great pride in the rich diversity in this area. How do you ensure that a campus is a welcoming place for everyone?
And I guess I would use the word inclusive there. Diversity is a word that often gets used. And you know, over the years, I know that I've invested heavily in ethnic studies programs. I find that we now have not a program for African American studies, but a department. Our program in Latina studies, which here would be called Hispanic, is, I think, within a year will be a department. So one is you have to have more courses in these areas, more areas covered, and what our programs need to grow to departments, and one needs to. It's partly about numbers. It's partly about cultural houses as well as academic programs, but it's not just numbers. It's an attitude. It's declaring that you will have an inclusive community, and when necessary, using the bully pulpit to say that certain kinds of behavior are not acceptable. But you can't declare it. You have to work at it slowly and build an infrastructure. It doesn't happen overnight, and I would say in the past decade at the University of Illinois, we are much more diverse, much more inclusive. But this is an ongoing project. You really don't reach the end of the line there.
Continuing work. Well, another area where there's continuing work, as you referenced earlier, the fiscal areas, state budgets in New Mexico, all over the country, under great pressure. Here at NMSU and across the state, university employees and other state employees have seen a reduction in pay because of increased employee contributions for retirement and then no pay raise. This is expected to be a continuing issue for the state budget. As president, would you be willing to take local action to ensure competitive compensation packages at the university if there are continuing problems with the state budget that require cuts like this?
Well, I think that's a complex question in the sense one needs to know what one is giving up. So if you look at most departments at a university, they're 90 to 95% personnel costs. So if there's a cut, where does the money come from? So first one has to decide how to, let's say, pay for more medical costs and how to do that. But the goal is always to ensure compensation packages, and one of the ways that we do that, but it's not across the board, unfortunately, is by raising chairs and professorships, finding ways to get additional compensation to individuals. But you know, in my time, we had 0% raise, and even that takes its toll. And if you're in for multiple years, you know, just people get despondent, and they don't want to work, as they don't feel good about being at your institution. On the other hand, when you realize that the country is in this, then it puts a little bit more of a rational outlook on it. But the short answer is we try to really do what we can to ensure that people get properly compensated. Mm-hmm. And that means properly is at least being competitive with your peers.
Do you see other ramifications of the recession and the state budget troubles other than the need for increased fundraising and for other fiscal work?
I'll tell you, the thing that scares me the most is that the middle class will vanish from the universities. Those who are in the Pell Grant eligible students, I think, especially given the rise in the Pell Grant and having it linked with a cost of living increase, and given where state aid goes, I think those group of individuals will be okay. Not great, but okay, provided all the aid programs continue. And then the reasonably wealthy will be able to send their students, their children, to college. But it's that middle group that may be the top end of the second quintile and the third quintile where that's problematic. And fortunately here, at least NMSU has a substantive community college effort. And I think a lot more students are going to start in community colleges. In fact, some of your own literature already indicates that. And therefore, you know, the seamless transition is important to me. So people may start in community colleges and finish here. And that's something we're working very hard at in Illinois, which at the university, which had been focused on not having transfers. And, you know, there were many barriers to that. So we have 49 community colleges in the state, and we're working very hard with many of them to create a seamless program, and we've doubled the number of transfers. So I do think the vanishing of the middle class is potentially a real difficulty for public universities.
Major challenge. Well, the fiscal health of New Mexico State has an added weight in this area because it is the largest employer. The university continues to also expand partnerships in the community aimed at economic development. What experiences do you have in working with local governments, with school districts, other partners to kind of create that kind of environment?
Okay, so let me parse that in the following ways. First, the local schools. I started some years ago working with the local schools, and And right now we have a program in, it's now called the Chancellor's Academy, where we invite school teachers up during the summer and work with them on items of their choosing. And the superintendents have gotten to love this. And we have a Center for Small Urban Schools in our College of Education, which reaches out during the year. I think we've gone from studying the schools to really working with them. And I give our College of Education a lot of credit. It's one thing to have an idea and put some resources behind it, but it's another thing to get a labor-intensive program to work. And I understand your College of Education here is doing many similar things. So that should be another source of pride. You asked what was good here. Well, that certainly sounds great to me. Working with the private sector, I've actually, in terms of our research portfolio, almost tripled the amount of research support that's coming to the university from the private sector. In particular, we had this wonderful award with Berkeley from BP for $500 million over 10 years. But we've also built a research park, which has turned out to be quite successful. We have maybe 1,400 people working in the park and 230 student interns getting experience there. I think that is economic development by state statute actually became part of our mission as we were about to build this research park, which has been successful. It's slowed down a little bit now, as you might expect, but we have a number of companies and a number of large companies. We started with Motorola, they moved out. We've got State Farm, we've got Caterpillar, John Deere, and again, what company is a function of who's there. And we have 36 companies in the incubator. So I think it's going well, and it is very much a focus of what I've been doing.
Okay. Well, we are quickly running out of time. I finally wanted to get to an issue where there has been some wide media coverage in the area, and that deals with your resignation from your previous job. I know you've been asked about this by individuals from the local newspaper, that politically connected applicants were said to be given some preference, and a six-figure job was said to have been created for a future son-in-law of a former trustee at your university. I wanted to give you a chance to address those issues.
Right. Well, I don't know that these individuals were given preference. There was, I think, you have two governors who, shall we say, were reaching in very serious ways, and at least the head of the Board of Trustees, who was seemed to be a conduit for those individuals, and we did come under a lot of pressure. Regarding my resignation, I just felt it was time to get off the stage so that the institution could move on, even though we've been creating firewalls. The issue of the job, frankly, this individual was first in his class in Oxford. So are we letting an opportunity go just because he happened to be related to a trustee? It's not clear to me what the right call is on that. Maybe because he was related, you don't do it. On the other hand, the unit that decided to hire him, and they did it without any pressure from anybody, really saw this kid as eminently qualified. Now, generally speaking, every institution comes under, particularly public institution, does come under some kind of we live in a political environment, right? So I think it was, for me, I felt in the end this was sort of like Da Vinci a little bit. It's easier to resist at the beginning than at the end. And you sort of came to believe that it was possible to work within a reasonable framework to get these things done, and in the end it wasn't. So I think that the practice has ended. There are many people pushing. Legislative people didn't report to me. They reported to the president and the system.
Do you feel like after going through the experience that now there would be things you would have done differently?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, you look back on it and say, well, you know, like anything else, this is was a learning experience, but not a particularly not particularly one that I want to go through again. Right? Mm-hmm. But you do learn from it, and although this is trite, the saying "what doesn't kill you makes you stronger," and you know, I feel wiser and stronger because of it.
Dr. Herman, thank you so much for being with us.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure.